right, Richie, welcome to the Founding AE podcast. Super excited to have you on today.
Yeah, Justin, good to be here.
Very cool. Well, I wanted to start, maybe for those that aren't familiar with you, by giving you an opportunity just to share a little bit about your background, how you got to be a founding AE in the first place, and specifically at Magic.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from Dublin originally. Started my sales career back in July 2020. So yeah, entry-level position as business development representative in a tech sales company. And then followed that route up to account executive SMB and then on to mid-market. So I suppose most recently, started a role as founding AE here in Melbourne in Australia. And to be honest, it sort of came about quite randomly. I had a friend who works in Magic at the moment, which is the company I work for now as founding AE, who was sort of speaking about my sort of career today in terms of outbound selling. And the CEO took an interest, wanted to have a chat, which sort of turned into an interview process and an offer. So yeah, I've been about 5 months in the role as founding AE at Magic.
Very cool. And tell us maybe a little bit about Magic. So you mentioned you're in Australia, but a little bit about the company. What do you guys offer? Who are you selling to? How do you guys position yourself in the market?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, we're an independent digital marketing agency. We've a team here in Australia, about 30 people. We also have a team over in Los Angeles and in London as well. We offer a range of digital marketing solutions. We're B2B. But yeah, I suppose in a nutshell, we work with businesses to understand their key marketing challenges. We support solutions like paid media, SEO, right across to sort of, we have a data analytics element as well. But yeah, we're quite consultative in our approach. So yeah, really identifying those key challenges and how we can add value for them.
And you mentioned that you were sort of recruited for your outbound sales experience. So is that sort of, as the founding AE, is your main mandate here, to really accelerate the revenue of the business by bringing more opportunities? Are you mostly focused on outbound at this point?
Yeah, 100%. So I suppose Magic to date have been relying on new business from referrals, which is great, and they've been really profitable from that as well. But there was some appetite to really, go out and hunt new business. And, that's what the CEO wanted to learn from myself. Like, what selling have you sort of done previously? And is that something that you see yourself being able to do? And yeah, definitely really exciting. I think there was so much opportunity in the market for Magic to chase. And I think there was a lot of folks in market, a lot of prospective customers that weren't aware of Magic's expertise, and obviously the customer success stories to date. So yeah, definitely an appetite to go out and hunt new business. And yeah, that's where I've come in.
Very cool. I think that's a really good sign of smart timing for bringing in founding AEs. So I get this question a lot. As somebody that speaks to a lot of founding AEs, I'll have other founders come to me and they'll be like, hey, when's the right time to bring on a founding AE? And I think some companies, some founders make the mistake of thinking that like a founding AE can help you create product market fit, if you know what I mean, right? And it's what I've seen in the past is that sets the founding AE up for failure, right? It's like if they haven't gotten some initial traction yet. I know your company's name is Magic, but it's hard for a founding AE to be a magician and create something out of nothing in that sense. But if a company like Magic, like you said, has been getting inbound referrals and there's this demand, it's the perfect building blocks, right, to bring on that founding AE to start, accelerating and sort of pulling in opportunities that maybe wouldn't have come in through referrals or inbound. So that's really cool to hear. I'm curious, when you joined the team, what sort of existed, right? So like, I'm assuming maybe the founder did a little bit of selling. There was, like you said, a lot of inbound, but what existed that you could sort of build upon, and what didn't exist that you had to build from scratch, from the ground up?
Yeah, so the founder done an element of selling, and to be honest, there was little to no inbound opportunities as well.
Mm,
So very, very much referral based, and it
mm,
seems that within marketing referrals are really strong, which again is great. And then there was no outbound sales motion whatsoever. So very much starting from scratch. And so yeah, I suppose the first 30 days for me was pretty important. Definitely leaned on previous experiences and learnings to help formulate that outbound sales process playbook. What sales tech stack are we going to be using? And then yeah, basically getting started. Starting semi scrappy, but yeah, understanding as well what is narrowing down our ICP. What does the target market look like? What are those key personas that we want to be reaching out to? So making sure I had a really confident handle on what all of that looked like before I started to go live in outreach. But yeah, just starting is important. We took the approach of testing, validating, and implementing.
mhm.
Uh, so yeah, after 2 weeks, I pressed go really and just kicked off the outbound strategy, which actually was quite successful. I managed to yield five new opportunities off the first campaign,
Wow.
which was comforting for sure. And yeah, managed to get some pretty sizable opportunities as well on the board. And yeah.
Yeah, you hit on some fundamentals that I think are really important for, especially for new founding AEs, kind of first time in a role. The idea of identifying the ICP, I think, is really, really core, right? And in the case of your guys' business, it sounds like you had some referrals, so you had some data to kind of look at and be like, okay, these are the type of people that need our service. This is what's resonating. This is what they're coming to us for. And then, like you said, just getting started, but also, like, to your point, staying flexible and iterating, seeing what's working. All these things are really fundamental. I'm curious. You mentioned that you were pretty successful out of the gate, and that part of your focus was also setting up some tools, like a little bit of a tool stack. What were the first handful of tools that you implemented? And maybe now, fast forward, I know it's only been a couple of months, but like, what did you bring on first? What was like number one, and then anything else that you've layered on since then? Anything that has worked really, really well for you guys that, if somebody is like starting tomorrow as a founding AE, they're listening to this podcast and they're starting to think about, okay, what are those first couple of things that I need to bring on? What are the things that really worked well for you?
Yeah, I mean, what we set up our CRM was a
Yeah.
big one. We're using HubSpot Sales Pro,
Hmm.
Sales Hub, which is great, obviously for your sequences, your admin, etc. Also, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, just for that sort of personal touch. I've always used that. I find it really positive and yeah, results oriented, I suppose. But also, you know, integrating my lead generation tool as well. So, and it's sort of data intelligence tool. So we use RocketReach.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, pretty solid, pretty accurate for me so far. And then also from yourself, we've been looking into the digital sales rooms as well, which are having a really positive impact on ongoing conversations alongside our sort of deal champion. So yeah, all that type of stuff, just getting it set up.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of all the tools that you mentioned. We use HubSpot, we use LinkedIn Sales Navigator heavily. I'm curious, in terms of your outreach, uh, did you find any particular channels that worked better than others? Is email still sort of, or cold calling, phone still the core channel that works for you guys, or is LinkedIn outreach? We're seeing personally, the reason I bring this up is personally, we've seen LinkedIn be a really good channel. I think that's how you and I connected in the first place as well. So we see a pretty good response rate on that front. But what have you seen out there? Any sort of indication on channels that are starting to show promise?
Yeah, for me, it's interesting. For me, cold calling for sure,
Yeah.
100%. I mean,
Hmm.
most has been cold calling. If I've had a little bit of success on LinkedIn, but yeah, cold calling has been, yeah, the best by far.
That's interesting. I feel like people have discounted it because they think, oh, people don't answer their phones anymore and there's caller ID and all these things, to the point where now it's an opportunity, right? Nobody's calling folks. So you can stand out actually, which is really, really promising and interesting to hear.
Yeah, yeah, I think nobody really loves cold calling.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones like, oh, am I in the mood for it? It's one of those ones where you have to build a sort of discipline and muscle to be like, look, you blocked out the time. You just got to do it no matter what.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I think it's the quickest route to qualifying or disqualifying a lead, really.
Yeah. Any tips on that? Like on how to you approach cold calling? I know the mindset is really important. I remember back in the day when I was a founding AE, I would do exactly like you said. There was a certain time of the day, usually, earlier in the day for me, I'd block some time where I had that energy, and just sort of like hammer the phone. But anything that you've found that has worked well, either mindset wise or opening on the call or anything like that.
Yeah, I usually use permission based openers. I think they
Yeah.
work quite well. And just acknowledging, like, a random number prospects guard is going to be up. But yeah, tonality as well, super important. I
Yeah.
think, what I learned early on in my career is the goal is to not sound like a salesperson, to some extent. And that's worked really well. But also, an element of doing your account research, but operationally speaking, don't focus too much time on that, because obviously you want to get your calls in, the volume of calls in. But yeah, just being quite strategic in how you want the conversation to flow. But yeah, it's the start of the call is super important. The first 30 seconds, as you probably well know, is putting them at ease, lowering their guard, and yeah, sort of hooking them early on.
Yeah, for sure. One element I wanted to dig into with you a little bit was uh, how you approach selling services versus product. Is this your first time selling services? Were you mostly from a product background before this?
Yeah, for sure. I actually really like that question. Yeah, this is the first time selling services for me.
Yeah. So what is that like? Like what are the differences that you found so far in the role? I know you're relatively new in it, but like what has been sort of the biggest learning curve maybe for you? And the one thing that I always think about, again, I've never sold services, always products. So in my experience, the demo of the product is such a core part of the sales process. So when there's no demo,
Yeah.
it's like, how do you approach the sale there? So I mean, yeah, I'm just curious to hear what that experience has been like for you so far, what the biggest learning curve is, and sort of how you've adapted to this new type of selling.
Yeah, so slightly different, but I think we still follow, I think there's the same sales process, same sort of buyer's journey. Like, I suppose the way I look at it is a product feature resembles one of our services. So we
Mm.
offer a range of digital marketing solutions, as I mentioned. Um, and yeah, really, like in the past, I remember doing demos early on in my career, and my manager saying like, "All right, we need to we need to talk about this." So like doing a lot of feature dumping,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
saying this, I'm not going to throw every service to a prospective customer. Like that's essentially the feature dump. But yeah, it always comes back. It all comes back to really understanding deeply the prospective customers, challenges, business issues, and what their priorities and goals are. So again, going really deep on discovery has been paramount for me and the team to uncover. But the only way we can really show and tell is through pitches and presentations. Whereas if you're
Mhm.
selling a product, obviously you have that sandbox or product demo that you can do. So yeah, it's pitches and presentations, which I think you can sort of nearly put as a demo. Obviously, it's not interactive, but you're still speaking to those challenges that you've uncovered or pain points that you've uncovered in the discovery call.
How customized is that process in terms of the pitches? Again, you have a variety of solutions. So is it completely customized every time you're sort of using a different deck, or is it
Yeah.
more swapping in the appropriate slides based on the services that align with their needs?
Yeah, as custom as possible. Again, the team, we operate in a consultative fashion for sure. So we don't want to really blue sky. We want to be very much meeting those needs and requirements that we've uncovered in the earlier conversation. So yeah, very much laser focused on what's important to them. And then if something comes up down the line, or even in those discovery calls, of course, we can pivot and speak to some additional services and value adds.
One thing I was wondering also about services is in SaaS, uh, we've done a decent job of sort of segmenting these roles, right? You've got, in some cases, you've got like the SDR who does the outbound, and then you've got the AE who does the demo and the closing, and then sometimes you have CS or account managers that then manage the relationship, the upsell, the cross sell, and all that stuff. Obviously, that's different when you're the founding AE. You're doing a lot of those different roles, but I'm wondering in services, once you've sold this engagement, do you stay on with that client? Are you sort of managing that relationship through the deliverables and all that stuff? Or I think you probably have market staff on, marketing consultants, right, that are doing the actual execution. But are you then still managing the relationship with the client, or are you sort of then focusing on getting the new client to the table?
Yeah. So yeah, once we get to deal closure, I sort of step away. Yeah, let the team with numerous account managers, etc., who will be handling execution. But yeah, I'm always there to come back into any conversations if there's upsell or expansion opportunities. So yeah, but I'd step away typically.
Makes sense. Yeah. I think especially in that case, the deliverable is so much more involved than a SaaS product where expecting a founding AE then to be heavily involved on the execution side might also take away from the prospecting and all that stuff. So that was actually one question I was going to ask you, as well as balancing your time, right? So, okay, you're not involved maybe so deeply into the deliverables, but at the same time, you are prospecting, you are closing, you are then handing off, right, to the execution team. How do you sort of balance that, right? Knowing that you also have to keep the pipeline. You're brought on initially with the intention of prospecting and bringing more opportunities. So how do you personally manage your time to balance those different activities, context shifting, and all that?
Yeah, I mean, initially, at the beginning of the role, very much at the high level of top of funnel activities. So a lot of lead
Yep.
generation, a lot of prospecting, etc. Now, 5 months into the role, so we have a bit of pipeline, which is great. And yeah, roughly speaking, I would split up my week into sort of buckets day by day. So about 40% would be top of funnel activities. So again, your lead generation, your prospecting. Then 40% would middle of funnel. So your ongoing consultative conversations, your deal progression, your admin, your building business cases, mutual action plans, etc. And then 20% would be the bottom of funnel activities. So contract out, negotiations, and yeah, deal closure really. So that would be the split. What I also like to do as well is have, those weekly reflection points as well. So every
Mm.
Friday, put in time to weekly reflect with leadership team and go through the sort of any wins, any challenges, and just general positives, just to keep them in the loop. So.
Is that something that you proactively brought to the sales process, or is that something that your founder brought to the table? I think that's a really important thing that probably a lot of salespeople don't do, right? I mean, they may, in a bigger team, a VP of sales might make that part of the process, but a founding AE may be so in the weeds of their day to day that they may not think of that being important. But I think that is really important. Is that something that you brought to the table?
Yeah, I can't take full credit for it. It was actually an old boss who recommended it to me
Mm.
when I worked in the tech company in Dublin, and it was really good because it allowed me to have that deep reflection. What's going well? What's not going so well? What do we need to optimize, especially for outbound? It's very easy to just go through the motions, going, "Oh, that's working. That messaging is right." Yeah, for sure. But really taking a step back and then talking with leadership. There might be something that I'm missing. Again, this is quite a new role for me, so yeah, it's been a really productive thing to have in the weekly schedule. Yeah.
One thing that I noticed, I did a little bit of snooping on LinkedIn, and I noticed that you took a course, Entrepreneurial Sales Institute, and it kind of piqued my interest. I think I've attended sales, courses and things like that, but I've always felt that there's a missing piece, which is the entrepreneurial sales, that early stage sales. So I wanted to know a little bit about what that diploma is, what that course was. And what did you learn, and how have you applied that, especially in this role as like a founding AE or founding sales rep? What were some things that you learned through that you've been able to actually apply?
Yeah, for sure. I remember starting that. I was my third year into my first sales role back in Dublin. So I would have been an account executive for mid-market. And I just felt like I was plateauing a little bit, going through the motions, and I wasn't really learning anything new. And, I had that goal of eventually being at enterprise level sales. So I felt I needed to do something new. I actually found ESI, in short, is the name of the course.
Mhm.
It popped up on LinkedIn as an ad, and it turned out that our CEO in that Dublin company knew the founder. So it made sense to explore, and he was brilliant, really good. I liked the sort of the modules and sections that they were giving sales reps. Like, it wasn't like teaching you how to cold call, for example. It was about building, building a high performing sales mindset, building those behaviors and competencies to consistently hit your number by a date. What I really thought was cool about it as well is it's industry agnostic. So you could be selling anything, but it's just those principles and behaviors that you sort of need to excel in a sales role. So yeah, really, really helped me grow as a salesperson. And I still have the stuff, I still have the content that, sometimes I look back on to sort of leverage.
Yeah, I think that curiosity that you just showed, and that eagerness to improve, is something that's such a important quality in any sales rep, but definitely in the founding sales role, right? It's almost like you proactively felt like you weren't progressing, and you weren't, you're going through the motion, and that, like, a lot of people can be comfortable doing that, you know what I mean? But in a founding AE role, you need to be adaptable. You're always trying to find new angles. So I think it sounded like you did that before being in a founding AE role. That might have been a sign that a founding AE role is in your future, just from that, you having that quality, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah. And especially now in this, how I found myself in this founding AE position is, constantly sharpening your sales toolkit. So
Yeah. I wanted to go back to one thing that you mentioned earlier, which was that the founder was doing a little bit of the selling before you got in. What did that handoff look like? I know some founders are kind of like, they hire their first sales rep, and it's like, hey, it's yours now. I'm out of here. Especially if they don't come from a sales background, or if that's not something that is something that they were comfortable with, and that can come maybe not so much in the services field, but when you're selling marketing services, maybe that's part of your DNA, but definitely in the tech field, right? On the other hand, there could be somebody that is very into sales and it's really hard for them to let go, right, of the sales
Yeah.
process. What was the experience like for you? How did you work with your founder to hand off? What level of involvement does your founder have today in sales? I know that you do that weekly update, which is great, and maybe that's a great tip, right, on how to bridge that handoff. But curious what that transition looked like.
Yeah, so he's our CEO is very good at utilizing his network. He's quite well known in the space as well. So I sort of, the way we do it, we obviously have tiers. So tier 1 right down to tier 3. So I'm very much responsible for tier 3 and tier 2s. Of course, I've full permission to hunt tier 1s. But he's responsible for those more strategic collaborations. So yeah, I let him do his thing. Of course, we align weekly, we chat weekly. I'm happy to support in any conversations that need be. But yeah, he's very much tier 1. Again, I'll focus on the tier 2 and 3s. And I like to sort of keep him, I don't want to be pulling him into too much stuff, especially early on. I try to look. That's me. I'm happy to do that. Only pull himself in when necessary, and obviously if it's a big enough opportunity. So yeah, we operate in parallel.
Yeah, totally. And it is one of those things. This is something that I've actually heard through a lot of these conversations, right? Is especially when you have somebody that's well connected in the space, has a lot of knowledge, brings a lot to the table in terms of credibility. It's knowing when to use that and when not to, right? Not to overuse it, but finding that right moment. Maybe it's like deeper in the sales process where you're trying to, get that person over the hump and get that to that point where now you're like, okay, we're definitely moving towards working together, right? Towards a deal. That might just be the moment to pull somebody in that gives that level of credibility and knowledge, right? That can also sit and speak as a non-salesperson, right? Which again, in the end, we're all salespeople in a certain extent, but just like, sometimes I used to use my founder a lot for that, even though obviously he was the main salesperson in the company as the CEO, he was also an industry expert, and it really brought that sort of level of credibility and trust that I think sometimes can be a good asset in the sales process.
Yeah, for sure.
To close out here, this has been awesome, by the way, and so much great stuff to dig into. One thing that I sometimes like to end with is just a quick sort of quick fire. What's one big win that you had since you've been on board there? What's one mistake that you made that you try to avoid, or maybe somebody listening can benefit from the pain that you went through, by avoiding that mistake? And what's one piece of advice if somebody was starting their first founding AE role? What's one thing that they can go in open-eyed about when it comes to this role?
Yeah, for sure. The win would have been closing a 6-figure deal last month.
Nice. Yeah,
it was nice. Especially, I think they're just better when it all comes from an outbound effort. All came from a cold call.
Oh man,
initially. So yeah, that was a nice one to get. I also more than one service that will be selling on that one as well. So one mistake probably would be negotiating without the economic buyer in the room. So negotiating with my champion, and then that sort of it's sort of put a spanner in the works, so it delayed the deal being closed. So again, understanding the their senior level leadership, or who's the champion, who's economic buyer, etc. And then the third one was what advice I'd give to founding AE. Is that right?
Yeah.
I'd say, discipline and consistency over perfection.
Yep.
Just start. Obviously, I think the first 2 weeks, do your due diligence. What does that ICP look like? who should be reaching out to. But yeah, just start and keep refining or keep optimizing, and go from there. Yeah.
All great learnings, and congrats on that six figure. I know that feeling to close a six-figure deal as a startup, or as maybe as a founding salesperson, building from the ground up, such a big achievement. And like you said, selling multiple services is just a sign of what's to come. So I wish you all the best, and thank you so much for coming to share with us today. There's so much great content that you just shared with somebody that, I think is going into the founding AE role for the first time. There's so much that they can take from this and hit the ground running. If somebody's listening to this and they do want to connect with you, maybe I have this dream that, I've spoken to folks in obviously the US, but also in the UK and other places in Europe and now Australia, that there's these like local communities of founding AEs that start to build globally. Let's say somebody in Australia or elsewhere is listening to this. Maybe they're getting into services for the first time, something's resonated with them, and they just want to pick your brain. Where's the best place for them to find you? And on the other side of the coin, if somebody's listening to this and like, wow, magic sounds really interesting, this could be something that's really valuable for us. Where can someone go to learn more about magic as well?
Yeah, I'd say LinkedIn would be best. Yeah, so Richie Duignan on LinkedIn, or magic on LinkedIn for a company page. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Richie, thanks again for the time today, and have a good rest of your day over there.
Yeah, pleasure, Justin. Thanks for having me on.